Welcome everyone to this webinar on exploring renewable energy solutions for climate resilient Puducherry, organized by Puducherry Climate Change Cell. Climate change demands a shift to sustainable energy. This webinar explores renewable energy solution for a climate resilient Puducherry. The expert will discuss the options, feasibility and policy aiming to build a cleaner, greener future. I now request K. Kalabegum, Environmental Engineer of Department of Science, Technology and Environment, to deliver the keynote address for this webinar.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. It is an honor to present the keynote address for this important webinar on exploring renewable energy solutions for a climate resilient Puducherry. The Puducherry Climate Change Cell, which is organizing this webinar, serves as a central hub for consolidating the diverse climate knowledge spread across the territory and integrating into one unified platform and effectively disseminating it to all sections of the society. The cell has successfully organized 34 webinar as a part of its climate change webinar series to date and aims to raise awareness and foster discussions on climate change through these various webinars. So the today's webinar focuses on a very important topic of need for enhancing our renewable energy potential in the Union Territory. Puducherry, with its coastal setting, low-lying urban areas, faces multiple challenges due to climate change, induced sea level rise, extreme heat events, extreme weather events like extreme rainfalls, and other impacts of climate change. So, in order to make Pondicherry a climate resilient union territory, we need to focus on uh, promoting renewable energy. As a part of the revised state action plan on climate change, prepared by the Puducherry Climate Change Cell and the Department of Science, Technology and Environment, uh, the government focuses to enhance the renewable energy capacity of the renewable energy from the existing 53 megawatts of installed solar potential to 225 megawatts by 2030. So by 2030, we target 37% penetration of solar and other renewable energies in our power share. Presently, we have 7%. Now we wanted to enhance it to 37%, and there are various diverse activities which are planned to reach the target. Um, One is the promotion of solar PV plants, rooftop solar PV plants in the residential areas. By 2027, the government has plans to install at least 75 megawatts of rooftop solar plants in 50,000 households under the Prime Minister Surya Ghar Yojana. And 100% solarization of all government buildings is also planned to be completed by 2026. And also, rooftop and ground mounted solar power generation of about 123 megawatts is planned over the next 5 years. And the potentials for establishing floating solar power plants in water bodies. That is another option which is being explored by the government of Puducherry. And also, we are planning to scale up the renewable energy purchase obligations um, to a considerable extent to achieve uh, 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 clean energy procurement. And another aspect is solarization of agricultural pumps and solarization in the industrial areas in terms of street lights and promoting solar concentrated solar technologies in industries for heating purpose. So there are various plans of government of Puducherry to enhance the solar energy penetration, solar and other renewable energy. Even wind energy also government is working on pilot projects to promote wind energy. So considerable initiatives are being taken by the government of Puducherry, and I hope this webinar will explore the various opportunities for government of for Puducherry to enhance our solar energy resources, and also bring in community engagement for successful energy transition by creating awareness to all the participants. So let us all come together to bring Puducherry to become a model city for low carbon, climate resilient future and ensuring energy security, economic growth, and sustainability of this union territory. Let us work together and make Puducherry a leader in clean energy. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I now request Kirti Balaji, Senior Project Associate, Puducherry Climate Change Cell, to introduce our today's expert.
Thank you. Mr. Frano De Silva has over 4 years of experience as a renewable energy analyst from Oro Consulting, Auroville. He works on distributed energy resources, especially solar and behind the meters storage system. He is a part of the team that manages digital tools, especially developed to aid the decision makers in adopting and integrating distributed energy resources. He is also experienced in industrial fields as a health and safety and production executive. Mr. Frano has keen interest in discovering methods for improving the energy efficiency of processes and exploring alternative energy resources to transition from conventional techniques by means of circular economy, energy efficiency, waste to energy, energy storage, and alternate fuels. It's a pleasure that we have the right person to give us insights on the topic of our webinar today. Thank you.
Thank you, Balaji. I now request Mr. Frano D. Silva, Renewable Energy Analyst, Auroville Consulting, to give the presentation on exploring renewable energy solution for climate resilient future.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction as well as context setting by Sir Kala Megan, and it already provided us a lot of context, and I will elaborate on some of the points that were highlighted. Uh, my name is Frano De Silva, as mentioned earlier, and I work as a renewable energy analyst at Auroville Consulting. I want someone to confirm if they can hear me well, and when I share my screen, if they can tell me if it's on the screen.
You're audible. You can share your screen.
Yes, I will share it immediately. One moment. Please let me know if the screen is visible to you.
Oh, yes. Carry on.
Okay. Thank you for the confirmation. Uh, what I would like, and thank you for the introduction as well. You addressed a lot of points that I will touch upon later. But before starting the presentation, I would request everyone to keep their mics on mute. In case if you have any questions, please hold on to those questions till the end, or you can put them on the chat so we can then address those questions at the end of the session. As mentioned, my name is Fernando De Silva, and I work at Auroville Consulting. The agenda for today's program would be to the agenda would be for introducing Auroville Consulting briefly. We will take you through the electricity consumption by fuel source for Pondicherry. Further, we will then talk a little bit about what is the overview and on Pondicherry solar energy policy and regulations. Talk a little bit on the financing models that are available in the policy. What are the renewable purchase obligations for Pondicherry? Some current status to see where we are and targets. Finally, we will also try to show you a decision-making tools that is developed in-house by Auroville Consulting. So about Auroville Consulting, we are a unit under Auroville Foundation and a non-for-profit organization. We provide strategic planning, design and monitoring services for corporate and government initiatives. Some of these sectors and services that we work in include renewable energy, advisory as well as carbon management and decarbonization. Today we'll be focusing on sectors such as renewable energy policy, carbon management and decarbonization, as well as power sector reforms. Uh, that's all on Urban Consulting. If you want to know more, I can elaborate later. To give you a context of what is the energy or electricity consumption by fuel source in Pondicherry and why we think it is important is because we must first understand where our electricity is sourced from to be able to devise a plan and then see how to manage and reduce our dependence on fossil fuels and transition towards renewable energy. There are multiple sources of renewable energy that are available. Some of them you can see in the existing electricity consumption already. As you can see, there is solar that is contributing to a certain consumption share, wind energy that is contributing to certain consumption share, as well as you have no contribution from hydro and biomass as of now, but that can eventually be increased through other sources. But what I wanted to highlight here and wanted to bring to your notice is that this is the electricity consumption for 23 and 24, that is the previous financial year. And you can see that most of your electricity or major chunk of your electricity has come from fossil fuel based technologies such as coal, lignite, and short term sources. Now, what includes in short term sources is thermal power plants as well as it is sourced from other discoms such as Tangentco or from KSEB, that is the Kerala State Electricity Board. Most of it is there is also contribution from open access as well as energy exchanges. Most of the technology that is contributing to short term is fossil fuel based, and you can clearly see that in the emission share, that is the pie chart on the right, where you can see that short term emissions from short term fuel contributes to 33% of the emissions for electricity that is being sourced. Lignite, though contributes only 15% of your electricity source, has the highest share in emission because it has a higher polluting capability. That's why when lignite is used, it contributes to higher emission. So, if we are looking at transitioning towards renewable energy, we must first understand that these are some sources that we must start reducing and integrating renewable energy so that we can then further transition as the targets have suggested towards a higher share of renewable energy. With a target of 37% of renewable energy share by 2030, we must start acting as soon as possible to do this transition. Going further, I will be talking a little bit on the Puducherry solar policy as well as regulations. The solar energy policy for Puducherry was introduced in 2015. Under this policy, we had multiple metering mechanisms that were introduced. For those who know what is metering mechanism, it is for those who do not know what is metering mechanism, it is a mechanism that is introduced to account for energy when solar system is integrated and connected to grid. In the next slide, I will explain what each type of metering mechanism is and how accounting is done for each of this mechanism. Additionally, facilitating rooftop solar on rented roof was introduced in this solar energy policy. What does this mean? This means that even if you do not own your rooftop, you are able to install a rooftop solar system and use the energy that is generated from that system. How is this beneficial? Well, it can be beneficial for people who do not own but have a large rooftop space, and the energy that is generated from that space then can be utilized to compensate for your electricity that you are sourcing from grid. Further, the Joint Electricity Regulatory Commission that regulates that makes the regulation for all union territories plus the state of Goa introduced the net metering regulation in 2019. What are some features that were introduced in this was providing limit to net metering. Now, when I say providing limit to net metering, the limit on net metering was provided to 500 kilowatt, which means if you select a metering mechanism net metering, you will not be able to install net metering or adopt net metering for a system size of above 500 kilowatt. The limit on gross metering was set up to sanction load. Sanction load here means the applicable load or allowable load that is sanctioned to that electricity connection. And each electricity connection will have a sanction load, which is then your limit under gross metering. There were two metering mechanisms such as group and virtual net metering, which was, I think, Pondicherry was one of the first state or union territory to introduce group and virtual net metering and facilitate this as early as 2015. Recently, there are many other states and union territories that have adopted this policy of introducing group and virtual net metering, which can facilitate many consumers to pull together and make use of the rooftop solar. I will further, in further slides, I will explain how these work and what are the advantages of each. But the limits for these were set from 5 kilowatt to 500 kilowatt systems. The tariffs for these are set by average power purchase cost, that is the APPC rate, or the feed-in tariff for individual metering mechanisms. I hope this is clear. And moving further to explain what are these metering mechanisms, as you can see, I have detailed three types of metering mechanisms here: net metering, net feed-in, and gross metering. Please note that net feed-in is not applicable. Sorry, please note that net feed-in is not applicable for Pondicherry, but it's an applicable metering mechanism in other states and union territories for India. So I will explain them so that we know how they work and we try and understand what are the advantages of each different mechanisms. So I should begin with net metering. The arrangement for net metering is on the left side of the slide, where we have a single bidirectional meter placed between the point of consumption and the grid sourced electricity. Why do I call it a bidirectional meter? Well, the bidirectional meter records what is the electricity or the units that you consume from grid, as well as takes into account what you can export to the grid in case you are generating excess from your rooftop solar system. Now, what does this mean in accounting systems? As you can see in the second column, I have allocated the grid supplied units as A, and in the third column, I have allocated the exported units to grid as B. In net metering, the advantage is that the compensation is based on your grid tariff. So, for example, if it's an industrial consumer under low tension, then the tariff applicable for that consumer, he or she will be compensated on that tariff. So the calculation is such that the grid units are then subtracted from the units that are exported to grid by your rooftop solar system, and the difference is then calculated as per your grid tariff, which is then reflected as the bill amount for your electricity bill. Whatever units, in the case that you have an excess export, where you have exported more than you have consumed, the excess units are then carried forward to the next billing period, and this continues until something called as a settlement period. For Pondicherry, the settlement period is 12 months or 1 year. At the end of 1 year, the units are lapsed and you begin again from the next year, next financial year. In case of Pondicherry, the settlement period is in September. So once the September is done, then your account is refreshed and you begin afresh from end of September. Moving to explain further what is net feed-in tariff. Here, the arrangement for net feed-in tariff is similar to net metering as explained earlier, where a bidirectional meter is placed between your point of consumption, that is your house or your facility or your office or a commercial unit or school or colleges. It could be anywhere you're consuming the electricity from grid. While if you have a rooftop solar system, it also records what you are exporting to grid after self consumption. However, the difference between net metering and net feed in is that it is charged at something known as net feed in tariff. Usually, this tariff is decided by the Electricity Regulatory Commission, and in Pondicherry's case, it would be the Joint Electricity Regulatory Commission. For every year, they propose a net feed in tariff which is revised or which is carried forward from the last year. The accounting in this case happens a slightly differently as compared to net metering. Here, as you can see, the grid supplied units represented as A are charged at grid's tariff or your consumer tariff. Then the exported units that is represented by B are applied on net feed-in tariff, and the difference of the amount is reflected in your bill. And as mentioned earlier, in case if you have the amount that is higher than what you have to pay for the units that you have sourced from grid, it gets carried forward to the next billing period until settlement period. So the difference between net metering and net feed-in is in particular the feed-in tariff that it gets compensated on. Finally, coming to gross metering. Gross metering is the arrangement that is shown on the right of the slide, where we have two meters. One we term as the export meter to record the units that are exported to grid, and in this case B, while we have another meter called the import meter where we record the grid supplied unit, in this case represented as A. The compensation for gross metering is done on something called as a gross feed-in tariff, and the calculation is similar where the grid supplied units are charged at grid tariff and the exported units from your rooftop solar system to the grid is charged at the gross feed-in tariff. So these are three basic solar metering arrangement and mechanisms that are available across India. However, one major difference between all of these mechanisms are that in gross metering, you cannot self-consume or you cannot use any of the electricity that is generated by your rooftop solar system. Hence the name gross metering, where you have to export the gross units or total units generated by your rooftop solar system directly to grid. While in net metering and net feed-in, there is facilitation that you can consume the electricity that is generated from your rooftop solar system. I hope that is clear to the participants. If any doubt occurs, then we can address it at the end of the session. Moving further to explain the two metering mechanisms that are specific to multiple consumers trying to find a space where they can install rooftop solar system and take benefit of it. The arrangement shown here is termed as a group net metering. So giving you an example, in case there is an entity or an owner who owns multiple buildings, here we call them as a host facility 1, host facility 2 and host facility 3. Bear in mind the owner is the same and the ownership of the buildings is the same. So how the arrangement happens here is if we do not have space on all the buildings, what the owner can decide to do is, if the owner has space available on one particular building, in this case the owner host facility 1 has the rooftop solar installed, The consumption here is shown in the red dotted line, which is 500 units consumed from grid. The units that are exported to grid, in this case 1000 units, are supplied to grid through the interconnection process, while the excess is then further compensated to the other facilities under the scheme. In this case, host facility 2 and host facility 3. The way that they are compensated is that the excess units are distributed on order of priority. For example, if the owner selects that host facility 2 gets the major chunk of the units that are exported, then host facility 2 will share the major percentage of the units, and the remaining will then go to the host facility 3 in this case. Bear in mind, the to avail this scheme, for all the buildings under the owner or for all the electricity connection, service connection under the owner, should have the same owner name or should be under the same owner. I hope that is clear. While virtual net metering, sorry, so virtual net metering. Moving further with virtual net metering, the difference between group net metering and virtual metering is that here you do not need to have a same ownership in multiple buildings. This could be for uh, a huge residence welfare association or commercial units or industrial estates that have multiple ownerships. They could decide to install rooftop system collectively and make use of the economies of scale, where then the unit price of the installation comes down. Use that installation to then export the generated units to grid, and these units are then virtually distributed among these service connections for the scheme. So the units that are distributed again are on priority, and this priority can be decided by the people under the scheme. In this case, the consumer 1 has a priority for 25% of the units that are exported, consumer 2 as well has a 25% priority, and consumer 3 will then have a 50% priority in this case. And here I again repeat that the owner need not be the same. That is, the owner of the service connection for multiple building can be different, and these owners can get together to install a rooftop solar system collectively and share the benefit of this. So these were the metering mechanisms that are available in Pondicherry. What are the financing models that can help us install these systems? So there are two main financing models known as the CapEx, that is the capital expenditure. And in this model, what we can do, or what is the option that is available, is that the rooftop solar system can either be self-financed, that is, if I am the owner of the building, I can finance the rooftop solar system, I can install this rooftop solar system and get benefit out of that system. However, if I do not have the initial investment to do it, then I can approach a bank or a non-banking finance corporation that can provide me a loan, and then I can pay the EMI and have the system generate electricity to compensate my electricity requirement. The advantage of this model is that you will be the owner of this system, and you will be able to maintain and operate this system as you like. What is the alternative? The alternative is called as a RESCO model, which is a Renewable Energy Service Company model. Here, even though I have a building, I have enough space, I do not have the initial investment to install rooftop solar system. So I approach a RESCO company who will finance and install the rooftop system as well as operate and maintain it. I will make an agreement with this RESCO company telling that you can use my space or my rooftop. You can use it to generate electricity from the rooftop system that you have installed, and and you will buy the electricity from this RESCO company at a predetermined tariff. This predetermined tariff is based on the power purchase agreement between you, the building owner, and the RESCO, that is the Renewable Energy Service Company. The advantage here is, in case you do not have a initial investment capability, you can then use RESCO companies to do the installation and source electricity from them, which is generally lower than the grid tariff that is being supplied in many cases for most of the consumers. So these were the metering mechanisms and financing models that are applicable in Pondicherry. Moving further and looking at what are some renewable purchase obligations for Pondicherry. The renewable purchase obligations were specified by Ministry of Power, and they were notified that by 2030, 43% of the electricity sourced should be from renewable energy. However, the state can then decide and see how they want to plan and how they want to approach this target and achieve this target. The Ministry of Power also included a new distributed renewable energy section for solar installations under 10 megawatt, which can primarily be considered as a rooftop solar system renewable purchase obligation. However, states can decide to allocate specific percentages to these selected technologies that are available to them. So these were the purchase obligation. I'm sorry, I will have to stop sharing the slide because I think I have hidden a slide here, which is on Pondicherry rooftop, Pondicherry renewable purchase obligation. So let me just correct that. Uh, can you please confirm if you have the slide on your screen?
Yes, yes, sir.
Thank you. So the renewable purchase obligation that is on your screen now is for Pondicherry specifically. These renewable purchase obligations are set by JERC, that's the regulatory body for Pondicherry. In 2022, JERC introduced the renewable purchase obligation, which included the hydro purchase obligation from large hydro projects that had a capacity of about 25 megawatt. As you can see, from 22, you have a solar RPO, a non-solar RPO, and non-solar RPO includes hydro purchase obligation as well as other non-solar RPO, which would then include wind and other renewable technologies. In total, for 22-23, the renewable purchase obligation included 18%. However, it increases year on year, keeping in mind that the renewable energy adoption and transition would happen at increasing rate year on year. In 24-25, the target is 21.58% from renewable energy technologies, for which the solar RPO is 11%, while the total non-solar is 10.58. So what is the current status of installed rooftop solar in Pondicherry as compared, and as we have seen the targets and what is the obligation that we need to satisfy? The current status shows us that in Pondicherry, we have 52.9 megawatt of rooftop solar installation as of February 2025. This data is taken from the MNRE source, where they release this information on monthly basis. The total rooftop solar installation for India is 16.7 gigawatt, out of which 52.9 is megawatt is from Pondicherry. And keep in mind, it's in megawatt while the target is shown in gigawatt here. As mentioned before the session, The solar energy target for Pondicherry is set to 225 megawatt to be achieved by 2030. So, what does this current status of rooftop solar mean? A study was carried out to check who have installed this rooftop solar system. And this study, bear in mind, is for pan India. So it is not specific for Pondicherry, but it shows an indication that 66% of rooftop solar installations are done by commercial and industrial consumers, while only 34% is by residential users, which shows clearly that commercial and industrial users are moving at a faster pace to install rooftop solar, particularly motivated by tariffs that are increasing year on year. While residential consumers are subsidized and their tariffs are lower compared to commercial and industrial users, the benefit for commercial and industrial users is higher, hence, you can see a higher adoption rate. While the more preferential business model that is being considered for rooftop solar is the capex model, where it is a self-financed model, and 70% of that installation is through capex model. While the OPEX that is shown here is the same as the RESCO model explained earlier, and you can see that 30% of the installation is under the RESCO or OPEX model. So, what is the way forward? The way forward is that there is predicted to be an increase in rooftop solar installation by 25% in financial year 2030. The sector that is untapped is the MSME sectors, where the potential is almost 15 gigawatt. Using battery storage, behind the meter storage systems can help reduce dependencies on diesel generator sets, especially for commercial and industrial users. Bear in mind, this statistics is for all India, and apologies for the error. As you can see, the title says Way Forward TN. It should have been corrected, and it is for Pondicherry, but the stats that are shown is in particular for Pan India. So, moving forward to the decision making tool, Orwell Consulting has developed Soul Savvy, and we have developed Soul Savvy because we find that the reasons to install rooftop solar can be multiple, like a legal requirement, such as regulations under Tamil Nadu for combined development building rules say that you need to have a mandate of installing solar energy system. Similar rules can push consumers to adopt rooftop solar. So that is a legal requirement. What is the environmental requirement? Well, lower emissions due to renewable energy sources. Companies have to now report environmental social governance, that is ESG reporting, and using this report, decisions are made for investment, and hence it becomes very critical to have electricity sourced from renewable energy. What are the financial benefits? Well, savings in long time, bill savings in this case, and avoided cost in case of year on year increase with tariff. And what is the decision making process for installing rooftop solar? We see that this process is divided into three steps, where we have the conception and we check the feasibility of the project. We further design and install the system, and finally we operate this system. But in conception and feasibility, where it takes most of the time, we want decisions to be made fast. We want to have an alternate opinion. We want to know that if my solar system, if I install a rooftop solar system, what is the generation pattern? What are the potential savings and investment requirements for installing this rooftop solar system? And here we bring the Solsavi. Before moving to the tool, we have conducted a financial feasibility of rooftop solar for Tamil Nadu CNI consumers, and this report is available to you on the Orwell Consulting website. What we did in this finding is we defined a financially attractive payback as a payback less than 5 years. We used multiple consumption pattern for industrial and commercial users and found that if an industrial user consumes 80% of their electricity that is generated, we find that they get a financially attractive payback. While this percentage reduces from 80% to 50% for an LT commercial user, meaning that if you install a rooftop solar system, you must design that system to try and consume as much as possible within your premises so self consumption percentage increases and your payback is financially attractive. Tamil Nadu has an additional charge on the electricity generated by solar, which is called as network charges. However, in Pondicherry, these charges are not applicable. And that means that using rooftop solar to compensate for your grid electricity is already financially attractive for rooftop solar systems in Pondicherry. So, what does Solsavi do? We call Solsavi as your rooftop solar guide. We have a Solsavi installer portal where you can connect with installers close to you by entering the address that you're looking for. We give details of the installers such as what installations do they do only solar or solar plus battery, do they do post installation services? Do they maintain it? Are they empaneled? And bear in mind, empaneled installers can avail subsidy. And subsidy from PM Suryagar currently is available only for residential consumers. So, if you're looking for empaneled installers, on Solsavi, you will have a tag mentioning that they're empaneled and they can then help you avail subsidy in case you're a domestic consumer. So advantages of rooftop calculator Solsavi is that existing tools lack state specific tariff. If you have used a rooftop solar tool, you will see that most of these tools ask for a single tariff, while domestic tariff are telescopic and vary according to your consumption. So we have tried to facilitate this telescopic tariff into the calculation so you get a near accurate result and you can use this result directly to communicate with the installer that this is your payback or this is the estimated payback. Would you be able to install this system for us? So, and one more advantage that we have in SolSurvey is that we give you a consumption pattern for the rooftop solar that you have installed. It is one of the tools that includes battery storage and does a financial output for solar plus battery and provides potential savings, payback, as well as return on investment. Finally, I would like to take 5 minutes of yours to do a demo simulation on Solsavi and show you how to use the tool. So you can then further use this tool for your personal use or even to estimate what you need to install for your buildings at work as well. So I will stop sharing my screen and I will open the Solsavi web page here. Please do let me know if the web page is on your screen. So this is the web page of Solsavi. You can see this is our home page where we can find the installers by clicking and entering the location. We have certain blogs that can help you understand how rooftop solar policy differs and what are certain benefits as well as what are certain steps to be taken to navigate the journey of installing rooftop solar. We have the calculator, rooftop solar, where I can take you through step-by-step procedure. And the way to access the calculator is either by pressing get started or you could go under resources and click the calculator tab, which will open a new tab for you. And Then you will come to the calculator page or a demographic calculator page. Here we ask for a pin code. I would request any of the participants to maybe give me a pin code that I can enter here.
Mr. Frano, I'll give a pin code for you.
Yes.
605 605.
Can you please repeat?
Yeah,
605
009.
009. It says Pondicherry, so I think it is central Pondicherry or very close to the center because you have Pondicherry multiple times here. So, would you also like to select a consumer type?
We'll choose domestic for residential.
Domestic. Okay. So, to give you a little brief, as soon as you put in the number here, what happens at the back end is the weather information for that particular pin code is updated. So, we use the pin code to zero in on the location and use the weather file for that particular location. Just to show you a difference, if I put 605101, which is in Tamil Nadu, we take the weather file for that particular pin code. And if we this pin code is updated for all states and union territories of India. So you put any pin code that is there for any area, you will have the weather file for that area, and specific calculations will be carried out only for those information. So as you have selected domestic consumer, you see that we have got these small I buttons which give you a little bit of more details of what it means. For example, institutional public would mean it's a government department or schools or hospitals, while private means on selection of domestic, you can see that you have a pre-selected voltage type, that is the low tension, because we find that there are no HT connections under domestic, at least in Pondicherry. To move further, you click next at the bottom of the screen and then you can define your policy. And in this case, the metering mechanisms that are available. For the simulation, I will be taking a net metering mechanism. And if you want to know more about what net metering again is, you can go through the I button, which has an explanation of how net metering works or how gross metering works in this case. The technology, we have two options, solar only or solar plus battery. And I will be selecting the solar only case for this simulation and clicking next at the bottom of the page to move forward. Here, you can see that we have two main inputs, that is your sanction load, and sanction load, as mentioned in the I button, is the allocated supply that is given for every electricity service connection. In this case, as it is an LT, I will select 5 to be safe, but I would like to show you something where if I select a value which is above the distinction of LT and HT, that is low tension and high tension, you get an error message. This is to guide the user to tell that whatever input you have done is incorrect and please reconsider your input. So we are trying to help the consumer to select appropriate values that can give them near accurate results.
What is the standard sanction load for domestic consumers? It'll be standard only, no?
It actually depends on your electricity connection. And when I say your electricity connection, for example, for houses, it depends on what are your appliances. If you have ACs, or if you have ACs, then your sanction load can definitely be higher than houses that don't have ACs. So it is relative to your use and it is relative to your electricity connection.
Like normally, when a domestic connection when we apply, we either say single phase or three phase. We don't request for any specific sanction load, no?
This request is not done because the electricity connection, when it is given, the department comes and department checks in to see what is your appliances that you have connected or how much electricity is required for your house, and then they assign this to you. So it would be different for different electricity connections. To have a standard would be very difficult, but Maybe the electricity department has a standard calculation that they do and provide you the sanction load.
Okay.
Usually, you will find this sanction load on your billing details, which will be mentioned as sanction load or contracted load.
Okay.
Further, to define your electricity consumption, we have provided two options. Either you can define month-wise, where you will define the electricity consumption in kilowatt hour for your for each of the month, or you can define an average monthly. Now, if I check an average monthly, sometimes we have realized that people would not be aware of this. So we have given an infographic where we say that if your household size varies from 1, 3 or 5 people and you have number of ACs, such as if I say my house has 3 people and has 2 ACs, average monthly consumption would be around 551. Now, please bear in mind this is an estimation and this is in no way representative of your actual consumption, but this is to just give you an indication of what your consumption could be and to move forward. So, if I say my consumption is 551, I would then put in 551 as my units and click next to proceed further. Now, we have the system financials. The solar system here includes cost of solar panels, balance of systems such as wiring, cables, as well as inverter and other civil works that are included for the installation. The price that we show here is representative and is taken from installers. Multiple quotations from installers were taken to arrive at this price. So if you change your sanction, if you this price varies according to your PV installation capacity. However, if you find that this per unit cost that we have given here is incorrect, you can make a decision to include whatever cost has been quoted to you by the installer. If it is higher, you put the higher cost, or if it is lower, then you put a lower cost. If you are availing subsidy, you can put a per kilowatt subsidy here as well. And in this case, you can see the total cost. You can see the changes reflected in total cost. So once you have done your system financials, you click next and you have two options here. Either you can customize your PV capacity, that is solar PV capacity, or we have an optimizer that tries to run multiple simulation and give you an optimized result for your consumption. However, here I would go to an customized result and show you for 1 kilowatt system what could be the benefit that you can achieve for the consumption that we have defined. I run the calculator and in few seconds it will give me a summary of results. As you can see that for the system that we have defined, we have a payback of 2.59 years. So almost 2.5 years we recover the cost that we have invested in this 1 kilowatt system. So we have the average annual savings of 11,000 and the average annual savings is over a period of 25 years. The rate of investment is around 12.5%, while with a daily solar generation of 4 units, that is 4 kilowatt hours, we are saving 1.17 tons of CO2 equivalent in the first year. I can find an installer further and share these results with them to see if they are interested to do the installation. I can use the revise calculation button to modify any input and see if that variation impacts on my payback and return on investment. Or I can click on detailed report, provide my name and mail ID to proceed and give me more detailed results from the simulation. Here, I would like to inform that we collect the name and mail ID so that we can reach out and check in with you in case if you have found the results interesting or try to connect you to an installer if you would like to connect to an installer. So this is your detailed report. As you can see, the details are for the state, the consumer type, The sanction load that you have selected, what is your total annual electricity consumption, your bill amount, the metering mechanism that you have taken in, what is the feed-in tariff that is compensated at, your average tariff without solar, that is in the case there is no solar system, and your average tariff in the case that there is a solar system. You have the consumption pattern here, and as you can, what I would like to show is if I select a date range, I can see different consumption pattern as well. The two consumption pattern here varies on weekend, so we have defined a different weekend consumption pattern, assuming that a 2 day weekend and assuming that the consumption pattern varies for consumers for weekend and weekday. Further, we can show you what, or we estimate that this is the shade free area that is required to install a 1 kilowatt system. That is 10 meters square minimum for a 1 kilowatt system. And with a with an investment of 50,000, I can see that my payback is within 2.23 years with a return of investment of around 12.5%. The graph on the right shows you the bill comparison between electricity bill with solar system and without solar system. The savings that are indicated on the left is the difference between this bill amount. So you can see how the bill varies for 25 years and you can see how these savings are changing over the years. We have considered a 3% increase in tariff from year on year to see and facilitate the actual reality. However, the trend can vary according to what is released on in particular years. Finally, we also give you where your energy is sourced from. In this case, out of 100% after installing rooftop solar, 20 excuse me 20% of your consumption happens through solar or the rooftop system that you have installed, while 80% is still from grid. The export units is 12% of total solar that is generated. So out of 100% of the units that you're generating, 12% is exported and the 80% that is generated goes to satisfy 20% of your load. What this tells us is that there is potential to install a higher system size and gain more benefit and increase the share of your consumption from solar. Why I say this? As you can see here, that you have a load from grid and load from system. So you can see that during solar hours, we find that there is scope that higher system can take some part of the load which is now still being consumed by grid during solar hours, that is between 9 to 5. So to grid, it is exported, yes, but after satisfying your load in that time, it has then exported to grid because these are excess units which are not consumed that time. As the evening consumption is high, introduction of battery can help you reduce this consumption and add to your savings. You can export this report, the two-page report, by clicking the export to PDF button. Or if you would like to see the assumptions that we have taken, you can click here at the end of the page and it takes you to the assumption page where we have defined each and every assumption considered for the simulation. I hope this was useful to you, and I will now stop sharing my screen so we can then address the questions that can be that are that you have from the session.
Participants are free to ask questions.
Mr. Frano, in this demonstration that you gave of this Soul Savvy portal, is the area available in my rooftop not a parameter, or did I miss it?
We have not considered area available on my rooftop because we ask you your solar system size or your desired size. So we assume that if you have selected the size, in the report we give you what is the shade-free area that is required. And you can then cross-verify and see if you have that shade-free area available.
But usually it is the other way, right? Whatever is available is is what I can install, right?
No, fair enough. I understand your point of view that yes, whatever is available, I can install there. But to decide whatever is available, shade free is very important. Sometimes what we have noticed is people consider whole rooftop and then there is shading there, and then when you say you cannot put it there, and it becomes a point of contention. So what we are trying to show is that if you install 1 kilowatt system, you would need a minimum area of 10 meters square that is shade free. And this, to drive this point, we have asked you to put in the solar system and then cross verify using the detailed report if you have the available area or not.
Okay, fine. I've seen one similar portal of the solar calculator at Arca 360 of Tata Groups, but this Soul Savvy is much more comprehensive than that. Uh, it's a very good portal. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions on the presentation content as well? If you found something relevant or if you found something not relevant, please do feel free to highlight so that we can take it forward from there.
Sir, good afternoon, sir. And
Good afternoon.
I'm with you.
Yes.
Sir, this is Department of Tourism, Government of Puducherry, and thank you for this wonderful presentation about the renewable energy solutions, which can be implemented in Puducherry. And thank you for this. And we have some questions with respect to the net metering, as we talked in the beginning of this PPT. Why you have mentioned that the Puducherry is not eligible for net metering? So why is it so?
I don't. I think you misunderstood me when I said Puducherry. I never said Puducherry is not eligible for net metering. I said net feed-in is not available in Puducherry.
Okay, okay. But I have heard that Puducherry is not eligible for net metering. Okay.
No, sir. Puducherry has net metering with a limit to 500 kilowatt. However, net feed-in, which is a separate metering mechanism, is not available in Puducherry. But you have net metering.
Okay, sir. Good thing. And another question is that since this topic is about the exploring the renewable energy solution, and what are the other alternatives that Puducherry have with respect to the renewable energy, which can be harnessed in Puducherry itself, which can be integrated in Puducherry grid as well. So, what are the other alternatives? Since this most of the topic as well discussion is about the solar energy only. So, what are the other alternatives which is present in Puducherry, which can be harnessed in Puducherry itself? Is
It's
there
a very interesting question. Puducherry landscape is a little,
small area,
uh,
around 492 square kilometer. In Puducherry, around in Puducherry is around 292 square kilometer. So, what are the other alternatives? Which is
yeah,
it can be harnessed in Puducherry itself. So, if we wider area, so for can be a wider area. Sorry, not wider area, wider base. I think. So, this is the question I want to ask.
as I mentioned, it's a very interesting question. One of the challenges of installing or integrating renewable energy is requirement of space. Uh, and as you know, it is very difficult to find large spaces. For example, if I want to put ground mounted, which is also a feasible solution, we will require large amount of area to put ground mounted solar, and hence rooftop solar becomes the best available option. However, you could and possibly source it out of from different places through open access, which will provide you a green open access and renewable energy. However, having different renewable technologies such as biomass generation and biogas would definitely require some space constraints. And I don't know how feasible it would be within Puducherry, but rooftop solars in that case would be the best option considering space constraints.
Okay, sir. Since Puducherry has coastal area around 40 kilometers, we have. So, is there any possibility to harness the wave energy as it is done in the Kerala Visinjam area and other area? So, is there any potential area for harness the wave energy in Puducherry?
Uh, to be honest, on tidal or wave energy, I would not be much aware of where it could be harnessed. But it's an interesting option. It's a nice option, and it could be seen and checked how what is the potential from harnessing these technologies.
Okay, sir. Okay. That's it. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Okay.
Any other participants having any questions, you are free to ask our expert. Okay, then we can move on to the vote of thanks. I now request the Maria Santalakshmi, Senior Project Associate of Puducherry Climate Change Cell, to give the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Tenmuri. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the Puducherry Climate Change Cell, I extend my sincere gratitude to all the participants for joining today's webinar on exploring renewable energy solutions for a climate resilient Puducherry. A special thanks to Mr. Fano from Arrowville Consulting for his insightful presentation on renewable energy solutions. His comprehensive overview of distributed energy sources and Puducherry's solar energy policies provided critical perspectives on advancing sustainable energy adoption. His detailed explanation on the different metering systems, which was very comprehensive. Also, a special appreciation for giving a detailed demonstration on your Sol Survey portal. Thank you, sir. I also express my deep uh, gratitude to Thiru K. Kalamegam, Environmental Engineer, DST, for his inspiring keynote address. Also, our heartfelt thanks to our department director for his unwavering support and encouragement in organizing this webinar. Finally, I extend my gratitude to all the participants for your engagement and contributions. Let us take forward the insightful gain today, collaborate towards a resilient and sustainable for Puducherry. Future for Puducherry. Thank you all.
Thank you. With this, we are winding up the webinar. Thank you for joining this webinar.
Thank you, everyone.